Well, Bill O'Reilly, thank you so much for having us on the set of The O'Reilly Factor.
Sure, Kathleen.
And congratulations on having the highest ratings of any cable news show for more than 10 consecutive years. And congratulations also on your brand new book, Killing Lincoln, The Shocking Assassination That Changed America Forever, co-written by Martin Dugard.
Thank you. I appreciate all that.
Well, you have written 9 consecutive books about mostly about politics, and everybody knows you for your political commentary. So why write a book about President Lincoln?
Well, because the country's in trouble. There's no doubt about it. America's power is on the descent. And in order to turn things around, we need a great leader. Now, it's not a knock against Obama or Bush or Clinton or any of that. But I felt, as an American first, and as a historian second, I have a history degree and I taught high school history. I wanted to get back to the essence of American leadership. And who's the best leader? In my opinion, it was Abraham Lincoln. So I wanted to write a book to refresh everybody's memory about how great a leader Lincoln was, what he sacrificed, and what is needed in America in a time of crisis. Because this is a really, really divided country now. And it was divided back then, obviously, with the Civil War. So there's so many parallels, and that's why I decided to write the book. And I wrote it in a novel form, so it wouldn't be some pin-headed history book that even the dimmest among us could read it and enjoy it.
What was it about Lincoln that made him a great leader? And of the modern day presidents, who comes close?
Lincoln's leadership stemmed out of self-sacrifice. He put his country above himself. When Lincoln took office, he was a big strapping 6'4" guy with an Arnold Schwarzenegger build. A lot of people don't know that, but he was a big guy. 4 years later, this guy had aged 30 years and was hunched over. And he knew he was going to be killed. Lincoln was the most hated man in the country when he was president. South obviously hated him. North, a lot of people didn't want to fight that war, didn't like the way he was going about it. But he put all of his personal concerns aside. And he said, you know, I'm going to do what I have to do to keep this country together, to heal this country and bring it back. And he did.
Now, the book chronicles the events leading up to the assassination and actually follows the days afterwards to John Wilkes Booth's final days hiding out in Samuel Mudd's barn. Looking back, how did the assassination, that single gunshot, change America forever?
Well, the first thing is that when Booth killed Lincoln, he thought that the South was going to rise again. All right, so the conspiracy was we'll kill Lincoln, we'll kill Vice President Johnson, we'll kill Secretary of State Seward, we'll knock them all off the same night. All right, and they only got Lincoln. I mean, they hurt Seward, but they only got Lincoln. And then that was the reason he did it. And then Booth got away, which was stunning because he broke his leg in the fall. He went to Dr. Mudd. Mudd set his leg. Booth then traveled further south, and the Union thought he was going to get away. So they brought in this crazy detective from New York City named Lafayette Baker to track him down, and that's a large part of the book. But what the essence of this was that Lincoln wanted to heal the South. When he was murdered, that whole thing went awry. Because as Vice President Johnson became president, he had a grudge against the South, Johnson, and he punished the South. And therefore, it set relations between the North and the South and blacks and whites back decades. Whereas if Lincoln had survived, the country would have been unified much quicker and everything would have been different.
Now, the book revives suspicions that Secretary of War Edwin Stanton was involved in the conspiracy to assassinate Lincoln. Based on your research, was Stanton involved, and was there indeed a cover-up?
We say in the book that we can't say for certain, but what we do know is that Booth's diary was given to Stanton. It was evidence seized. Stanton was running the investigation. Stanton was the second most powerful man in the country as Secretary of War next to Lincoln. When Lincoln was murdered, all right, Stanton took over the investigation, pretty much took over the government. Because Johnson, the vice president, was a drunken bum. But anyway, when Booth's diary was given to Stanton, 17 pages went missing from that diary. And suspicion fell on Stanton in a congressional investigation years later that he destroyed the 17 pages. Nobody knows what was in the pages, but certainly that was huge. And therefore, I told Marty Dugard, the researcher, just take it up to where the evidence leads us. We don't go into any speculation. So that's all I can tell you, Kathleen.
Bill, as you talked about earlier, Lincoln very much wanted to heal a divided nation, and today the nation seems more polarized than ever. In terms of being a uniter, as he pledged to be, how is President Obama, who actually has a portrait of Lincoln hanging in the Oval Office, how is he doing, and how does he compare to Lincoln?
Well, I don't know. I can't answer how he compares to Lincoln because his legacy is certainly still developing. But I'll tell you this. After I interviewed the president on Super Bowl Sunday, he took me up very generously to the Lincoln bedroom, and I'd never been there, and showed me Lincoln's handwritten Gettysburg Address. It was an amazing moment in my life. I know that Obama admires Lincoln, as Bush did. I talked about both presidents about Abraham Lincoln. Now, as far as President Obama is concerned in the unification question, the problem, I believe, in personal opinion, that President Obama has run into is that he has allowed his liberalism. He's a liberal man, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, liberal, conservative, if that's a firmly held belief, I don't think it should be derided. But he has allowed his liberalism, all right, to get in the way of his efficiency. So I'm a person who's an independent, and I say, if I try something and it doesn't work, then I'm going to try something else. President Obama doesn't do that. He tries to revive the economy by the big government apparatus and spending trillions of dollars. It didn't work. What's his solution? Well, let's spend more money. And people like me and conservative people are going, well, no. Now you try the free marketplace. Now you try the private sector. But he won't. And I think that stubborn ideology, something Abraham Lincoln did not have, has stood in his way, not only of uniting a nation, but of making the nation better and stronger economically.
Now, President Obama Friday declared an end to the Iraq war and announced all U.S. troops would be withdrawn from Iraq by year's end. Is this a wise policy move on the president's part? I
don't think he had much choice. If it were me, I would have left 10,000 U.S. troops there to make sure that Iran doesn't misbehave and the Turks don't come in the north, because I think both of those things are going to happen. But I think that the Iraqi government just wasn't cooperating. And the essential thing is that the Iraqi government would not assure President Obama and the United States that they wouldn't prosecute American forces for misbehavior. Whereas President Obama said, look, if we leave these guys there, and they misbehave, we will deal with it, not you. And they said, no, they'll be tried by Sharia law, Muslim law, and you can't do that. So you have to protect your people. So I don't think President Obama had any choice but to take them out of there.
President Obama is struggling in the polls, really having a hard time there. If he's serious about winning re-election, what does he need to do?
I don't know. I can't tell you what he needs to do, because the economy is everything. It's everything. And he just doesn't seem to want to go and stimulate the private sector. He doesn't want to do that. So I think he's just going to go and hope that the American people buy into his hope strategy for the second time. And I don't think they will.
Do you think that the economy could potentially turn around?
Could. Possible. And that, of course, will make it a much tighter race. But if we're looking at 9% unemployment this time next year, he's done.
Bill, I'd like to get your thoughts on some of the GOP presidential candidates. Herman Cain recently surged in the polls. Do you think that he can maintain the surge to win the nomination?
Look, Herman Cain is basically filling a role right now. He's a good guy. I think he's honest. I like his presentation. But he is the conservative guy. That's who he is. All right? So the conservatives who vote ideology, they're going, well, I think he's the best conservative, so that he's getting that vote. He doesn't have the organization right now to compete on the ground in the primary states. I don't think he has the money to do it. But look, he could get it, I guess, but it's getting awful late.
Should the Republican establishment at least embrace him?
I don't know. I don't know anything about the Republican establishment. They frighten me. Look, I think that the fat cats, the money guys, want somebody with more executive experience. You got two governors running, Romney and Perry. I think that's the preference, just based on experience.
Now, you recently said that you would be shocked if Mitt Romney doesn't win the nomination. Let's suppose that you're right and Romney gets the nomination. Who would be his best choice for VP?
I think he's got to go to the Hispanic community. So Mark Rubio would probably be the guy that I would be talking to. He might think about Herman Cain or Michelle Bachmann. I mean, those people have high profiles, and they set a conservative agenda, because a lot of conservatives don't like Mitt Romney. If you put a conservative on the second, as McCain did with Palin, that might play. Rubio, you get a twofer. You get a Hispanic American, and you get a conservative. So it seems to me that that would be someplace he might look, because the Republican Party, in order to win needs Hispanic Americans to consider that voting for them. There's no doubt about it.
How do you see Rick Perry's campaign evolving?
Well, I don't know. I got Perry coming in next week, and then we'll see what he's about.
Bill, you have a great rapport with your audience. Of all of the GOP presidential candidates, which do you think has the best rapport right now with Americans?
Oh, I think Herman Cain. I think Herman Cain has cut through the shroud of politics speak and just linked up with all the folks. Who doesn't like Herman Cain as a guy, except for the far left nuts? But he looks like a good guy. He'd like to go out and have a beer with him or whatever, or pizza if he bought. So anyway, I think that by and large, Herman Cain is doing the best job of communicating.
Last question for you, Bill. Judge Andrew Napolitano told Newsmax TV in an interview last year that the president who had the least fidelity to the Constitution was Abraham Lincoln, noting that he waged war on half the country, even though he obviously had no authority for that, says Judge Napolitano. Do you think that Obama has crossed that same constitutional line with his military actions overseas? No,
I don't. I think Napolitano, and we've debated this, is a little fanatical. He doesn't take into account executive authority at all. He just dismisses it like it doesn't exist. And Abraham Lincoln did what he had to do to win that Civil War. You know, he did what he had to do. If Judge Napolitano were the president, we'd have two countries. And I'm saying that with all due respect. But if Judge Andrew Napolitano were president, there'd be the Confederate States and there'd be the North. You could not have won that war abiding by every line in the Constitution. It's possible. Now we have technology that allows us to kill terrorists who are obviously trying to kill us. I think both Bush and Obama made a mistake not declaring war after 9/11. I would have gone to Congress for that power, but they didn't for a lot of logistical reasons, budgetary being number one. All right? But I have no beef with getting these guys, and, you know, but I believe in a Constitution, but I think there's a little room in there to protect our lives.
All right. Well, again, the book is called Killing Lincoln, The Shocking Assassination That Changed America Forever. It is a fantastic read, available on Amazon.com and at bookstores everywhere. Bill O'Reilly, thanks so much for having us.
All right, Kathleen, my pleasure.